Viewers and listeners, welcome back to Elevated Duty Podcast. Staff Sergeant Norcross, Carmen National Guard along, always with...
Sergeant Eduardo Rivera, and this is episode 20.
20, wow.
It's crazy, right?
Episode 20.
When we started this, I wasn't thinking of getting into 20, and then now I'm thinking of the number. So once we hit the year, what will be that number, Because, some weeks we do one, like we do a one every week, and then there's more stuff. There's mission happening, and then obviously for us, this is, we try to, get stories out there, but this is not priority. If mission goes first, and that's part of the military. Mission goes first always.
Yes.
So we try to, even though we try to push out our smash content and stories and let the people know the National Guard story. If it's not possible, then we just, wait for the next week.
Yeah, and if you're following the podcast and you're watching and listening, don't forget to follow the other channels. And so there's a lot of social media out there.
Yeah.
If you like the podcast and the guests that we bring on, the stories that we tell, what are some of the other avenues that they can reach out to and look up?
Yeah. So Instagram, Facebook, CO National Guard, National Guard, and we also have YouTube shorts.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are not able to see or watch the whole thing, we clip the best parts or the best quotes, the best comments from our guests.
Yep.
And then, you'll be able, if you go right, there's a tab on top of our channel. It says YouTube Shorts. Go there. You'll see all the summaries for all the guests we had.
Yep. And also, a lot of the units throughout the state of Colorado, if you are interested in a specific unit, if you have family or friends, or if you're interested in joining and maybe possibly looking into more and finding out what that unit offers, in social media on Facebook and on Twitter and Instagram, a lot of these units have their own profiles.
Yeah.
And so if you look at like 193rd, the military police,
yeah,
they'll have their own Instagram profile that you can go follow.
3157.
They're the 157th Artillery.
Infantry.
Yeah. The Infantry, 1st 157th, they have an amazing, we can pull up their stuff right now.
Yeah.
We were just looking at some of the stuff that they had posted recently, and so Sergeant Rivera is going to pull that up. And speaking of 1st 157th Infantry, our guest today, kind of a long, drawn-out welcome, but welcome Specialist Hunter Passamaneck, currently attached to the 1st 157th, correct?
Yeah, I'm in HHC. I've been in, joined February of 2021, so about 3 years, going on 4.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a great ride so far. I got super fortunate when I joined. I kind of landed in a really good section. I work in the S1 shop as a 42 Alpha Human Resources Specialist.
Okay.
And I have really good leadership, and I think I'm very lucky to have that. They let me branch out and do a lot more than just 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks in the summer.
Okay.
And it's crazy. That's how I met you.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah.
And I didn't know you were a 42 Alpha, so that's crazy.
Yeah, most people are kind of taken when they're like, "Oh, what do you do in the Army?" I'm like, I'm an admin guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going to all the shooting comps and funeral honors as well.
Yeah.
People are kind of taken back. They're like, "Oh, you're in the infantry, and you must be infantry." I'm like, I am not.
That's what I thought when I met you last year, and I saw I saw you this year, and you're always shooting good. I was like,
yeah.
He's infantry.
Can we pull up? Did you pull that up, Sergeant Rivera?
Yeah.
The infantry's profile.
Yeah, right here.
And so, Specialist Passamaneck, you said that which company in 1st 157th do you belong to?
Yeah, so I'm in HHC. So a lot of components of HHC work as battalion staff. So I work at the battalion level. So we do a lot of interaction with other units.
Mm-hmm.
Other 42 Alphas are at company levels, so they manage their 40 or 50 guys, and my shop is on top of the 650, 700 people we have in our unit. So people have pay issues and all the administration stuff for the whole battalion. That's kind of our jam and what we handle.
And so here, as you can see and follow along, Sergeant Rivera pulled it up. Like we were mentioning at the beginning of the podcast, it's not just us giving out information and being on social media for the Colorado National Guard. So this is just one This is just one example that you can go follow, and they have great content, and the soldiers' stories are phenomenal. They try to keep it's updated pretty regularly from what I can see.
Yeah,
Right,
I think the managers are Sergeant Phelps and Sergeant Durales. So
Okay.
they're always posting. I mean, I don't know if they have other managers. I know them. They manage. So whenever they post or whatever, they send me a message. It's like, hey, I send you a collab, and because we collab a lot.
Yeah.
So and then that's something we're trying to do is like basically spread the same messaging across all platforms.
Absolutely.
State recruiting, like state meaning like COARNG
Yeah,
level,
yeah.
joint level, army recruiting, army state, and then at the unit level, like infantry, artillery or
Sure.
whatever other unit. So
Yeah, it's really good to see that social media has really taken off for
Yeah.
the Colorado National Guard.
Yeah, something I love about the 157's infantry page is they really display everything that our soldiers are doing outside of the guard. Like if you scroll down a little bit, Specialist Bryce Peterson doing one of his with those guys. He was at a competition for, I think that was
this was the endurance competition.
Yeah.
We had where is it? Oh, I move it here. We had Lindsay, candidate, officer candidate Lindsay Lopez.
Great
And
podcast. Go back and
we
watch
had
that
Sergeant
one.
Phelps too, and then
Sergeant Phelps.
And then it's funny because I think they both they're part of all the teams.
Endurance team,
Yeah.
biathlon team, endurance team.
So
And then,
marathon
Norwegian
team.
Ruck March up there that
Mhm.
a lot of people from the infantry went to. That was really cool.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening on state, and that's why I'm glad the units are posting, because I'm only one and I cannot be everywhere.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And then again, my main mission is helping recruiters to reach out people and try to get out the message of all the benefits we provide. But then I think providing stories like yours and all the guests that we had previously is important, because people can connect with stories.
Absolutely.
Like some people will not care about. Some people will need the benefits and will care about the benefits. Other people is like, hey, what other people have done and what other stories. And once they hear, hey, I've done this, I've been here, I come from here, they're like, oh, I come from there.
Yep.
I relate from that. I had those struggles. And then now that person is like Sergeant Mayor Assad. Oh, that's a Sergeant Mayor. That's a Chief 1 Officer 5. There's a general, And then they come from like humble backgrounds, and then now all the way now they're leaders within our organization. So that's why I think conveying messages and stories and sending those stories out is important.
Agreed. It's everybody knows. You watch. You can go online and go to Google, and it's pushed so hard from the Department of Defense and in every compo for recruiting, benefits and incentives, and everybody knows what the benefits and incentives are. But what we really are starting to see is that for you that are watching and listening to this podcast, like Sergeant Rivera said, go check out these other channels and go talk to service members. You'd probably be very surprised that wherever you live in the state of Colorado, someone in your neighborhood probably is serving in the Colorado National Guard in some fashion.
And one thing, going back to the stories, when we had the SATAM, is a semi-annual training meeting for recruiters.
Yep.
One of the guests we brought, he mentioned the importance of stories.
Yep.
And we were like, I was like, I think I've been with all the tables with all the recruiters. If I haven't been there, it's probably because they're pretty new.
Mm-hmm.
And majority of them, they actually share their stories.
Yep.
It's like, hey, what you like? Oh, I like medical. Oh, I know a friend of mine is medical, or a friend of mine is infantry,
or their hobbies,
or I'm infantry.
Exactly.
Or some of them have like 3-4 MOSs.
Yes.
So it's like, this is how I jump around. So
speaking of stories, so not to delay it any further, Hunter, so tell us your story.
So I joined in 2021, and something I tell people when they're thinking about joining.
Let's hold before you join. where'd you come from? What's your
Yeah.
background?
Okay, gotcha.
Who was Hunter growing up? Where'd you
Yeah.
like? Where'd you
So
come from?
I grew up in Arvada, Colorado, just west of Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Faith Christian Academy. It's not a school anymore, but that's where I went.
Okay.
And so yeah, I kind of grew up there. It was more or less kind of a little bit of a sheltered life.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was 17, actually leading up to 17, a couple months before, I started looking into, what do I want to do after high school?
Yep.
And I knew a lot of people before I joined that were already in the Colorado Guard or in the Army. I knew a couple Air Force guys as well, and so I really had a good pool of people to draw from to find out, if I do want to serve in the military, what's kind of the best route for me right now.
Okay.
And I did my own research. I think doing your own research is pretty cool first before you walk into a recruiting office, personally. And I found the split option program. So I joined 5 days after I turned 17.
Yep.
In February of 2021. And I went to basic training during summer of 2021 in between my junior and senior year. And then I came back, finished my senior year, went to AIT, and then showed up in my unit. But yeah, just having a kind of sheltered background, I would say, it was really cool coming into the Army and being able to work with people from all around the world. And you go to basic training with people that are like, oh yeah, like I'm here to get my citizenship, and
Mm-hmm.
like, that's really cool.
Yep.
And yeah, joining at a young age was pretty cool because you can kind of be moldable, and I guess for lack of a better phrase, the Army can kind of have a lot more influence on you than if you joined when you were a little bit older.
Sure.
So part of my growing up, coming of age, however you want to call it, the Army played a big role in that, and I'm very grateful for that.
Now, you had mentioned, I want to go back to it, talking about doing your own research. And did you find out about the split train option on your own?
Yeah, so one of my buddies who's in the Colorado Guard came to me, and I was like, I'm going to be graduating in a year, and, I'd love to join.
Yep.
I don't really know what it looks like. I'm thinking about going active. And he's like, pump the brakes. Don't go active. The National Guard's where it's at. And I'm like, tell me more.
Okay.
And, he started telling me he skipped all of the benefits and the enlistment bonuses and all that stuff. And he skipped straight to here's what the Guard can give to you.
Okay.
You can travel and shoot. You can, go to other countries. You can experience the world, and you can do all these cool things and get paid to do it. And when I started doing all that stuff, you'd come to the end of these trips, and then the paycheck hits, and you're like, oh, I forgot I was getting paid for this.
Yeah.
Like, I just was having a good time with my friends. But yeah, doing my own research, those people that helped me at the very beginning, finding the split option program. And I think it's really cool because your time in service starts early, and you can pick up rank faster.
Yep.
You can, you can technically retire earlier.
Yep.
You can get started earlier, really. Like, that's just it's a huge benefit I think a lot of people overlook.
It is. And we talk with applicants that are coming in, or we do, we go to schools, high schools throughout the state of Colorado, and we talk to these students that are juniors and seniors. And the other branches of service, they have, when you enlist, you would go into like the delayed entry program. Mm-hmm. And so you're promising to join some of these active duty component branches, whereas the Guard, like you said, your contract starts when you were a junior in high school, correct?
Yeah.
Went to basic training in between your junior and senior year. And how was that? It's from your perspective, being in high school as a junior, and it's summer and everybody's kind of, summer break, and you're out doing basic training. How did that compare in your lifestyle, looking at your friend group? And
so looking back, looking back, there were a lot of sacrifices that I didn't even realize I gave up. So I'm a big shooter. I shoot for the Colorado Guard, and I shoot for Colorado State Shotgun Sports. So in high school, I was big into shotgun shooting, and when I joined, I was like, "Yep, like I'm gonna join, have like 1 or 2 weeks of summer, shoot the state championship," and I was one of the top favorites. I got third in the leagues, and I was averaging 23.5 out of 25 in trap.
Okay.
And so, like, things were really looking up, and I was like, this is great. Like, I'm going to win a state championship, go off to basic training, come back, do it again. And, like, you know, same things with other things I was involved in high school, like debate. I got third state champion in debate. I was like, cool, I'm going to come back and keep on doing this. And then, you know, my ship date comes up, and, like, oh, you're going to miss the state championship. And that's kind of the first thing in the Colorado Guard that was like, oh, did I make the right choice?
Sure.
And in the moment, and probably for like a year, I was a little taken back. And I wouldn't say regretful, but kind of just like, oh, like wondering what could have been. But now, you know, 3 years down the road, looking back, it was 110% worth it. Because even, you know, the shooting comps I go to now, you bring back, you know, from the tag match this year, you know, we brought back five or six plaques a person, and like you got all these awards on your dresser or mantle or whatever, and they're cool. Like I think they're sweet, but you know, you look back on them a year or two later, and you definitely remember the time that you spent with the team, and with the people you shoot with, a lot more than the awards. So, yeah, I think it was a good way for me to grow up and just be like, okay, I missed one tournament,
right?
And I gave up one tournament to, you know, compete for the Army and to join the Army and be a part of something bigger than myself. And then, you know, I come back from basic training, and going back to high school after going to U.S. Army basic training is a wild experience. It was like truly a shell shock. You know, in those, you know, 11, 12 weeks, like you become a man and you grow up, you get big boy paychecks, you learn so much about the Army. And at a young age, you learn so much about yourself. And then you come back, and then all your friends in high school are like
doing the same thing.
Exactly, if not worse. And it was really cool to kind of be able to look at my peers and be like, I'm 17 and I have the next 6 years planned out, and you don't know what you're doing tomorrow. I think coming back to high school after basic training helped me a lot. And I think it kept me out of a lot of trouble, if I'm being honest.
Sure.
But then AIT came around after I graduated, and then I missed another state championship. But that one was a lot more well received. I was a lot more mentally prepared for that, because at that point, you know, between junior and senior year, you go to RSP, Recruit Sustainment Program, and the NCOs that lead it, when I was there, are the best, and they really cared a lot about molding you from the beginning of your career. And you know, they took you as moldable clay, and you know, you show up 1 weekend a month, and you do the Army way, and you're so young and you don't know what you don't know. And it was really cool to have mentorship from a lot of those NCOs. And it's cool because a lot of those NCOs are not at RSP anymore. And a few of them are actually in my unit. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, Sergeant First Class Resendez.
Oh, yeah.
So I get to work with him a lot, which is really cool. Because like at the beginning, it was like, oh, like this guy's just gonna mentor me, and I'm never gonna see him again. And then I come back to my unit. I'm like, I get to work with you,
right,
and keep on learning from you, which is an amazing experience.
I think as a reservist, I came from the reserve. That's one of the biggest things I've been seeing here in the National Guard.
Yeah,
is that like even though the military is small, the National Guard gets smaller.
Yep.
And then people that you on another like army status you will not get on here, it will happen like that. Like in the reserve, all the recruiters are AGRs, so they go nationwide PCSs. So like even though I still have a good relationship with my recruiters from when I joined, I haven't seen them anymore.
Yeah.
I follow them on, like, we talk on social media and whatever, but I don't get the mentorship from them. And I know there are good NCOs, but then that's not assistance, and it's cool you're having that experience. So that's
and we got to retain them and keep them here and keep that knowledge.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you were able to experience that. I look back and I tell people that I'm talking with that are interested in joining the National Guard. I joined at 21. And so my only regret is I wish I would have done it in your shoes and done the split train option and had that many more years and had that much more experience and had a little bit more rank and a little bit more money saved.
Use the benefits, go to college. Like, that's what I did. Same. I joined at 21. And something I wanted to ask you is, like, you went at 17, you came back. So when I went, I was 21. I came back at 22. So for me, it is crazy because it was a cultural shock both ways. It was my first time in mainland from Puerto Rico. So for me, it was a cultural shock.
Yep.
And then once I went back, I was like, I don't feel I fit. Like, I was like, why people are just walking like without purpose, and like they don't have like a motivation to move or motivations to do stuff. Do you felt that happen? Like when you came back, you saw your peers?
You really catch on that, I guess, lack of a better word. Civilians are very different than people in the Army. And we do a lot of, you end up doing a lot of work on active duty bases. So you get to interact with a lot of active duty people as well. And personally, like, civilian sometimes, or soldier 24/7, but not working in an office or working in the field as a soldier all the time, you really get to see, like, wow, in the National Guard, I have the best of both worlds.
Yep.
Like, I get to show people on a daily basis what it means to actually be a U.S. soldier.
Out in public.
Yeah.
And within your community. We talk about it, and we have people that come in, and if you're watching or listening, whether it's high school or college, one of the biggest selling points that you kind of mentioned earlier is whether it's the split train option and you're leaving for basic training in between your junior and senior year and then going to AIT after you graduate, or maybe you're going to college and you've enlisted or officer, whatever path you choose. There's no wrong answer, but whatever it is in life that you're looking for, when you go and apply for that dream job, or you go to experience that new opportunity and they're asking, where's your life experience? You may have studied throughout high school, you may have gone to college, but now you're showing up and you don't have the real world experience that you've gained, or those, and you're going to college right now, correct?
Yeah, I'm getting my undergrad at Colorado State University, and I'm going for business, and I use state TA, FAFSA, federal aid. I got a Montgomery GI Bill with the kicker, which is fantastic. And so I'm basically getting an undergrad degree for free, and I plan on going to University of Wyoming after to get my law degree, and that'll also be mostly, hopefully, totally free, but we'll see. But that's one of the biggest things I saw when I was in high school, because before I joined the Guard, my plan was join the Guard and immediately IST out to Virginia to go to Liberty University and shoot on their shotgun team.
Okay.
And as I went through RSP and as I went through basic training, AIT, I got to pick people's brains. Like, hey, have you ever IST'd? What does it look like? How hard is it? Is it worth it? Do I do it? And when I started interacting with a lot of other units in the Guard and a lot of active duty units, I quickly found out that the Colorado Guard is a great place to be.
How so?
So, well, off the top of my head, for a good example, I went to Mountain Warfare School in Jericho, Vermont, back in March, and that was really cool. Got to experience, how to make it in the mountains, and got to interact with a lot of people from active duty and other National Guards, and you're in the barracks talking with people about like what their state is like, what they offer, and I found out really quick that Colorado's a very squared away National Guard.
Okay.
I talked with one dude from Kentucky, because I'm also in the funeral honors program, and so he said he started the funeral honors program in Kentucky just a few years ago. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, like in Kentucky, no one wants to do anything. No one wants to, be a part of extra duty or whatever. And no one wants to shell out the money to do this kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, like in Colorado, like there's so many opportunities to do all this stuff. And,
Yeah, I hate to hear that. And I'm sure, there's always a couple different sides to every story.
Sure, absolutely.
But no, you're not wrong. Tell us about more in depth on that. So you mentioned funeral honor program. Let's rewind and bring it back to you graduated AIT as a 42 Alpha, right? What made you choose that job? Were you doing your research?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. That's like, as you travel around with the Army, like everyone talks about their career, and especially shooting comps, people are like, oh, like, you 18 series, 11 series. I'm like, I'm admin. And they're like, why are you admin? And I'm like, well, like, you're an infantryman and we're at the same comp right now. So that's one thing. When I joined and was trying to pick an MOS, I tried to not look at the bonus list, because I didn't want to make my career about money. I wanted enough to, get by and, put food on the table and pay the bills.
Yep.
And, the Army helps me do that now. I originally wanted to be a 27 Delta, a paralegal specialist.
Okay.
I found that those slots are few and far between in the Colorado Guard, and I would say that they are somewhat limited. I think it's a great secondary MOS. One guy works in my shop, and he's R27 Delta, and he does a great job, and that's his secondary MOS. But the whole idea behind being a 42 Alpha is, if you're an infantryman, 13 series or 18 series, you get out of the Army, and if you really break it down, those aren't super marketable skills in the civilian world.
Limited, sure.
That's why people pick up secondary MOSs.
Yep.
And the Guard allows you to make yourself marketable, which is really cool. And I figured I should be marketable right out of the gate. And with a 42 Alpha, you pick up your secret clearance, you get all this access. When I joined, I got to my unit, and I immediately had state access, and I had unit access.
And explain that job to people that are listening. What are your duties and responsibilities as a 42 Alpha?
Yeah, so people hear human resources specialist, and they kind of equate it to the civilian world, like
human resource office.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very different than civilian sector. So in the Army, as a 42 Alpha, you take whatever people that are in your unit. So for me, it's battalion. So there are about 700 people in my battalion. So I have access to, helping them with pay issues. We process awards.
Okay.
We keep track of personnel. And, someone comes in and they're like, hey, like, I just had a big life move. Like, I either moved or got divorced. I'm like, all right, we're going to help you out. And we're going to take the problem and we're going to solve it. So I think, like, that's what I do at drill mostly is I try to solve as many problems as I can. And
that's good.
A lot of people that are in my shop are full-time So they're doing day-to-day work, which it drives the battalion.
And when you came in as a traditional National Guardsman 1 week in a month, and then your annual training during the year, your job as a 42 Alpha, the opportunities you just mentioned, a lot of your counterparts do it full time. There's full-time opportunities pretty regularly for a 42 Alpha, right? If you ever wanted to transition and come work full time for the National Guard.
That was one of the reasons I joined as a 42 Alpha. Is anytime I want, I essentially can drop an AGR packet, active Guard Reserve, and I can immediately just be working full time. So I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the Guard is you can always make plan A, but if you don't have a plan B, C, and D, you're kind of putting a lot of eggs in one basket. But the Colorado Guard allows you to have, multiple baskets and multiple opportunities. And a 42 Alpha, I don't know, the numbers may have changed, but when I joined, it was one of the most popular MOSs to transition to. Everyone in my shop did not start off as a 42 Alpha. I think there's one other guy that started off going to AIT. There were a lot of transfer MOSs from active duty, and it's just, I think it's a great job, and I don't think it's given enough credit.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is, and it's a different beast to learn. I mean, no Army computer system is like civilian systems.
Sure.
It's really cool to learn all that, and the new Army system, IPSE, that was pushed out a couple of years ago, when I went through AIT, that wasn't being pushed out yet. Our instructors were still learning about it.
Yeah.
So my AIT was just reading regulations, and they were like, hey, once you get to your unit, you're going to have to learn. And the first day I got to my unit, they took me under their wing, and they're like, we know you don't know anything, but we're going to teach you everything we can. And now, as I've been in the infantry for a few years, I feel like when I'm ready to promote, which I hope is very soon, that I can go to any unit and be very beneficial to their mission.
Absolutely. And so you said that you're at the battalion level, right?
Yeah.
And so right out of high school, as a soldier in the Colorado National Guard, graduating high school, and leaving pretty soon after to AIT.
Yeah, it was 6 days.
6 days traveling and getting experience at AIT, learning the basic, the fundamentals of 42 Alpha, and coming back. How many soldiers are you taking care of at a battalion level for 1st to 157th Infantry?
About 700.
So 700 individuals. That life experience, fresh out of high school
That's
and
17.
going to college as a full-time college student.
Yeah.
Adding that to your resume, that's really incredible.
Yeah. I don't think the civilian level you get that. Nope. You will not get that.
Very, very hard to find.
Yeah. So similar to you is funny because when I was trying to reclass, I transferred units to go to the 363rd PAT in Puerto Rico. So our AGR was reclassing, and she told me, hey, I need someone to take over the unit on ADOS, and I need you to learn everything, because when you have a detachment, that's at the battalion level, you have all the chops. You have from S1 to S6. So you have all the chops helping each other, right? At a detachment level, you only have one person running the choke. So I had to learn everything. S4, lateral transfer, these positions, turn-ins, how to, people, it's funny because people used to tell me, oh, you only have 8 people. I was like, yeah, I have 8 people,
right?
But I'm running all the chops.
Yeah.
And so, and then one thing I was going to mention is on 7 months, I had to learn so many processes specifically to being an almost 42 Alpha.
Yeah.
And I was asking a bunch of questions, but then everything moved so fast, and all the processes moved so fast. So how was that learning process for you once you get to your unit and you need to learn
the real world, not the training?
Yeah, and then now because you got into the transition of the old system into IPSE. How was that for you?
Yeah, so with learning the new system, I think comes the greatest benefit of being a 42 Alpha. is you get to learn how the Army runs and how the Army works. You learn how, like, I think if you ask the average soldier, like, tell me the entire promotion process, like, tell me how you write awards.
Yep.
Like, they just don't know how to do that because it's not their job. And it's fair for them to not know.
Well, for me recently, they told me, "Oh, you got to validate points." I was like, "Wait,
Yeah.
hold on. Like, I know the old process.
Yep.
You got to explain me now the new process." So our unit had to give a briefing. This is how you validate points. I was like, "Oh," and now I had a mess with my points. I was like, "Oh, Then they told me, "Oh, you need to do this." I was like, "What?"
It's really interesting because you said you're a full-time college student, right, at CSU.
Yep.
One of the things that we talk with the individuals that we meet with that are looking into the National Guard, and they're really getting close to starting that step, and they graduate high school or they're in college right now, and they're worried about that, second job they're going to have to get to help them while they're going to school. And they're starting to think about, oh, hey, I need to go get that part-time job. I need this experience, but you're not going to get a really good experience from a lot of part-time jobs that you're going to find, as a full-time college student.
Right.
But for you, as a full-time college student, you had mentioned military funeral honor program. What are some of the opportunities, and you just mentioned it, going on ADOS or active duty operational support. Tell us that story. So you came to the unit, and how quickly did you pick up kind of that second job as a part-time National Guardsman?
So I think it's really cool because you go into a recruiting office and they're like, okay, what is it like? And they're like 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer.
Yep.
That's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
You can do a lot. I think last year I was on orders for probably 6 or 7 months out of the entire year, which is I think it's a lot for an M day. But that was all like voluntary stuff. I was all about it. No one forced my hand into anything. So I came to my unit in like October of 22. 22. And then I kind of just wanted to learn my job first.
Yep.
And then, so I was just doing 1 weekend a month until about May. And then that's when I started to get my feet wet with the Army. And my first big thing that I did is I volunteered to go to Slovenia with the infantry. And that was a awesome experience. I got to, we went to Italy for a little bit, like a day, and we were in Slovenia for like 3 weeks, and you got to train with other countries and make connections with other people.
And you volunteered for this?
Yeah, it was voluntary. Slovenia is the Colorado Army National Guard's sister country.
Yeah, state partnership program.
State partnership, yeah. So we do a lot of training with them, and it's really cool to have that opportunity to, an 18-year-old kid going on a paid trip to Europe and, experience the world. And because, a lot of my friends right now are taking trips to Europe on their own dime. And I'm like, that's cool. I got paid like $3,000 to go
do your job.
Yeah, to go do my job. And I had a great time. And then summer came around. I started training for the tag match, and that was the next voluntary thing I did. So I shot the tag match August of 23, and I had some great training from some people that were on the Colorado marksmanship team, including yourself, and got on the governor's 20 list. And that's when, I think right when I got on the governor's 20 list, that's when things started to take off.
Now that you mentioned, do you guys want to go back to last year's and then
sure? Let's pull it up.
See that was my first tag match. Also, I was like, and then once I went to cover, I was like, oh, this is great.
And so you briefly mentioned it. When you were growing up, you shot growing up, correct?
Yeah. I started shooting probably when I was 4 or 5.
And did you know about our marksmanship program and our marksmanship team?
Yeah. Was
that a big seller for you to come into the Colorado National Guard?
That was huge.
And so this is video that you're watching here. This is last year's tag match, and this was your first tag match, you said, correct?
Yeah, it was my first tag match, and showing up, because I've heard a lot about tag matches from other states, and like, oh yeah, like 40 or 50 guys show up. It's pretty low key. Last year's tag match was riveting, and
It was our biggest ever. I think
there
we
were
had
130-ish,
130 signups. I think shooters on ground, we had about 120.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is absolutely insane. Going to a state championship for shooting for the Army and seeing 120 other competitors, and that's why getting on the governor's 20 list meant a lot to me.
Yep.
It's because, like, yeah, I beat out 119 guys to get on this list, and you know, I performed really well, and I think it was maybe 4 or 5 days after the tag match, and the state marksmanship coordinator, you know, came up to me and was like, do you want to keep on shooting for the Army? I was like, absolutely. Like, I'm all in. Like, whatever it takes, I'm here for it. He's like, do you want to shoot the Max 7 regional championship? I'm like,
yep.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it entails, but I'm in. So like 4 or 5 days after my first tag match, I find myself in Whittington Center in
New Mexico
for the Max 7 regional, and I was shooting a regional championship my first year in my unit, and I was like, this is awesome. And that was the tag match is a fairly simple, I would say, very simple courses of fire. It's very training friendly. If anyone out there is thinking about shooting the tag match, highly recommend. You know, you can almost say it's not even about winning. It's about becoming a more lethal soldier and learning more about, you know, your warrior tasks and battle drills. And it's just something you don't really get from quals. But yeah, so going to the regional, you know, I got to shoot with a bunch of other states.
Yep.
And I really learned quickly that I have a lot to learn. And it was a huge learning experience. And one of the coolest things about going to that is the Colorado marksmanship team conveyed to me that when you start out on the team, it's not about winning. It's about learning. And, you know, state marksmanship coordinator and yourself, Sergeant Norcross, you guys told me that we don't care how you place as long as you absorb as much knowledge as possible. So, you know, I'm just out there taking notes, talking to people, you know, learning about gear setups, all that good stuff. And then, you know, after that regional, I was like, okay, like, I feel like I learned a lot. And then All Army came around in March, and we tried to put a team together for that. We couldn't get funding, which was very unfortunate. So that fell through. But right after that was the Winston P. Wilson Small Arms Championship, and I got an invite to that, shooting on the A team. And, you know, I remember sitting in the car on the way to Camp Joseph T. Robinson in Arkansas. Like, I'm going to shoot a national championship for the U.S. Army, and I've been shooting for the Army for 6 months.
Yep.
And it was a mind-blowing experience. And showing up, and, you know, at the tag match, we shot like 12, 13 matches.
This year?
Yeah, Winston P. Wilson is like 25,
yeah,
maybe closer to 30 almost. And you're shooting like 25 different courses of fire over 5 or 6 days. And from people from all around the country, you know, every state gets one alpha team funded. So I think we had like 250, 260 competitors.
Yep.
So almost like double, almost triple the size of the tag match. And, you know, it felt like quadruple the amount of competition and experience. And, you know, being able to see what it truly means to be a competitor in this game, and being able to see what it takes and how much grit and training that it takes. It's a daily thing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely daily if you want to compete in the sport. And then after Winston P. Wilson, I was like, okay, like, I've shot every course of fire for an Army competition. Like, I got my feet wet. I started learning. Now it's time to, start memorizing the courses of fire. And after I memorized the courses of fire, then I started working on my fundamentals. And I was very disappointed at Winston P. Wilson. I shot pistol EIC, and I had my hold point wrong. I made a huge mental error, and it's part of learning. And I had really nice groups on all my targets in the 2 and 3 area on the targets, so just below the 5 ring. And I remember staring at my targets in the scoring area and just like, wow, if I held a little bit higher, like I would have got leg points.
You can stare all you want. The holes are where they're at.
Yeah. That's what lit me on fire. And I was like, this is never going to happen again.
I'm so glad you said it about our tag match this year and the tag match last year, your first tag match in 2023, about the learning experience and opportunity.
Absolutely.
Shout out to the National Guard Marksmanship Training Center and all of the amazing leadership that they have. All of our courses of fire, most of them are derived from the courses of fire shot at Camp Robinson for the Winston P. Wilson. But that's the intent. That's their intent.
Yeah.
Competition's great, and competition breeds excellence. And for you to become a better shooter, like you said, just putting in the time and the repetition and focusing on the fundamentals. But really, for you to have gained that knowledge and that training, that's the intent behind these.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my favorite stories I like, because you walk around a drill and you're wearing the Governor's 20 tab, and you go to Mountain Warfare or Sylvania or whatever, and people are like, what's that? And then you get to tell them the story. And then I like to tell the stories of one of our teammates, Sergeant First Class Gruntiner, because the first time he shot the tag match, he was, if I remember correctly, he was like near the bottom. And then his second year, he moved up a lot. I think he was like 25th or something, so just missed the list. And then the third year he shot it, he got 3rd overall behind you and Sergeant Fulmer.
Yep.
And two of the greatest shooters that have ever been in the Colorado Guard. And I got 3rd overall this year, which was very cool. But just that's the story I tell people when they shoot their first tag match, and they're like, oh, like, specialist pass, like, I didn't do that good, like, I'm terrible. And I'm like, you're not terrible. Like, there is such a thing as a talented shooter. Personally, growing up, I've been shooting since I was 5. I was not a talented shooter. I would show up with my dad and my brother, my brother is a very talented shooter. My dad has been shooting for a very long time. He was in the top 10 at most 3-gun championships that we went to. And I was always just like trying to figure out how to shoot, and like, reloads, timing, position, just being a very young individual shooting at these national championships. It's a lot to take in. And what people will never see from the marksmanship team is the training that you do on an individual level. Like, people are never going to see you driving, 3-hour round trip to the range, paying range fees, buying your own guns, buying your own ammo, like doing target practice.
Yeah, that was something when we spoke after the tag match, and I was like, hey, good job. Like I saw your shooting, and I saw you like how you rank overall. I was like, do you train for this in your time? And he's like, oh yeah.
Yep.
I was like, what? He's like, and you explained me a little bit. I was like, that's a lot of shooting.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's dry firing every day. There's a lot of shots you take for Army matches in the kneeling position. So my first year in competition, I spent the entire summer doing hot yoga and just getting more flexible. And now, like, my kneeling position is shown so much improvement.
Sure.
For rifle EIC at the 200-yard kneeling, I went from getting 10s and 12s. Now I'm shooting in the 30s and 40s, And just seeing that progress in 1 year is phenomenal. And I couldn't have done any of it without the mentorship of the team.
It's cool you mentioned the kneeling. Like, I saw some complaints. People are like,
yeah.
oh, the kneeling is the one getting me. The kneeling is the one getting me. And then the more experienced shooters, they're already past that. So the ones shooting first time tag match, they're suffering that. But then the ones that already have experience, they're like, oh, this is, kneeling is hard because there's a lot of kneeling. But then next year you did it, you fixed that, and then you're shooting better.
And it's so funny because it's a voluntary extracurricular opportunity that is offered in the National Guard. And we talk about it almost every single podcast. It's not just the marksmanship team. And to be able to train and, like you had talked about, hone your skills, whether it's marksmanship, biathlon, running and hiking, endurance, marathon team, all these extraordinary soldier athletes in the Colorado National Guard.
New editing techniques, freaking like all the like social media updates every month, something like that. I was like, we have new features, we have new this, new that, so we need to adapt like so quick, just like the systems. I don't think IPSA will be the last system. So probably 2-3 years down the road, we'll have a new system.
Right.
Yeah.
But
100%.
It's you go talk to some people in the marksmanship community. Sergeant Sager has a quote to where he talks about, hey, if you want to be a good violinist, what do you have to do?
Just
practice the violin.
Yeah.
And so if you want to be a good biathlon team member, you have to go train on your own. If you want to be the best 42 Alpha that you can be, you're going to have to study some material on your own. If you and especially in the National Guard, if you want to maintain PT, you're going to have to go do PT on your own. And
like these guys, like the IG, the JAG, these guys just sit down and read regulations. Because that's what they deal with. It's like we need to provide advice to the leadership and the command, so we need to know the regulation. So, and they might not know it on top of their head, but they're like, oh, that thing falls under this regulation, and they just know where to look. And we know some of them, but we don't know all of them. So
I'm so glad you were able to find this opportunity and continue your passion, growing up from your civilian side. And we have that, and we offer that right at the highest levels that you can in the Department of Defense for shooting for the United States Army. This is an amazing passion and hobby that you are. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of your career within marksmanship in the National Guard. But you had mentioned earlier about going back to college and going and furthering your education career. So what is that side? You talked about it earlier of having these plans. And I totally agree. I think one of the best things in the National Guard is, we have in the military like a PACE plan, right? So your primary, your alternate, your contingent, and your emergency plan. And whatever you're doing in life, the Guard is able to start filling these holes and giving you that backup opportunity if you want to ever change your career, or if you ever want to move, or whatever the case is.
And one thing we have in the Guard that probably it's not assistance in majority of active duties, that you have civilian life and military life. So,
So what is that plan right now for you, being at CSU and shooting for CSU and shooting for the Army and having kind of, your hobby taken care of in this extracurricular, but what's the end goal? I know you said going to law school.
Yeah, so the original plan was to become a JAG lawyer for the Army. And so I was going to IST up to Wyoming, and I was getting ready to drop my packet, and then I was like, I need to do some more research. So I start looking into the Wyoming Guard. I start talking to people in the Colorado Guard. They're like, dude, we have contacts. Like, we can hook you up. Don't worry. You'll still be able to shoot for them. And University of Wyoming, they have a shooting team as well, a shotgun sports team. So I was like, okay, like, too easy. I'll go shoot shotgun for Wyoming. I'll IST. I'll shoot on Wyoming's Army marksmanship team. And then I started looking into what that entails. If I IST'd to Wyoming, then I would have to sign a brand new 6-year contract. And then I would owe them 2 years after law school. So essentially, like, if I were to IST, I would owe the Wyoming National Guard 8 years. So I made the decision to stay in the Colorado Army National Guard. And there are a lot of people who do that. there are a lot of people that I know personally that live in another state
Yep.
that are in the Colorado Guard.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on funding, they'll pay for your travel to come here. But even in the event to where they don't, personally, I don't think it's that big of a deal. You know, I travel so much for shooting anyways. You know, what's a 1 to 2 hour drive one weekend? It's not that big a deal. And like you said earlier, the Colorado Guard's a small family.
Yeah.
Yep.
And buying into the family and giving back, staying a part of it, I think is a very beneficial thing to do. So I think being able to go to Wyoming, go to law school, and stay in the Colorado Guard, keep all my contacts, stay shooting, and you know there are units all over the Colorado Guard. So, you know, commuting isn't going to be that big of a deal one weekend a month. But that's my current plan. And as far as planning goes, you know, hypothetically, law school doesn't work out. You know, what if it doesn't?
Sure.
Like, okay, alternate plan. I have a immediate entry into the AGR program through being a 42 Alpha. Well, what if there aren't 42 Alpha slots available? Well, you can still board for other AGR slots.
Correct.
And then pick up a new MOS, and then you're even more marketable.
Yep.
So I think that's the biggest thing that I would want to say to people who are looking into joining is plans change. And, you know, my junior year of high school, I was looking to go to Virginia for college, and then I stayed here. And I was looking to IST to Wyoming, and I'm still staying here, but I'm still going to go to Wyoming. So the Colorado Guard is so flexible, and the opportunities here just, they blew my mind. And I legitimately thought when I joined, I was like, okay, I'm going to do 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer, you know, get down and dirty every now and then. It's probably going to suck every now and then. But, you know, the past 2 years have just been absolutely amazing. And I wouldn't have traded the last 2 years for anything, honestly.
I love to hear that.
So 2 years overall. Huh?
Yeah. It's a lot in 2 years.
2 years. 2 years. So,
Yeah,
you know,
I guess like 3.
well, yeah, 3. Even put 4 or 5 is a lot. It's a lot of stuff. It's more stuff than most people. So if you are out there and you're going to college, and probably you are not from Colorado, probably you're from somewhere else, and you're staying here and you're studying here, there's opportunities to you can join, let us pay for college, and then you can transfer out if you want. There's opportunities. Like, that's why people ask me, I was like, overall, forget about the National Guard, Army is the best option.
Oh yeah,
that's my opinion. It's the biggest. Like, there's
agree.
slots everywhere. You can jump from all the components back and forth. So that's how I end up here. And then on top of that, your skills will be like, it will work within the military and within the civilian side. So
yeah, the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Whatever lifestyle choices. There's an old saying that the only thing constant in the military is change, right? And you mentioned change within yourself and your plans, and I agree with you. I think the Colorado National Guard is able to help you during change, whether it's in your civilian career, with your family, whatever you may be going through or will go through inevitably throughout your life. The National Guard is here to help you and give you that assistance, allow you those opportunities. If you want more training, it's going to give you more training. If you want to kind of slow down, it will let you slow down. If you want to move, it will let you move.
And if you don't want to move, you can stay here. And you will be on state.
We hope you stay here.
That's why my wife, she's like, I hope I can get something in the National Guard, because she's done. She's like, I don't want to move Colorado. You have a good job. I want you to stay here, and I want to stay here. So she's like, National Guard is the best option.
Oh yeah.
And she's only been active, correct?
No, we were reserve, and then she got she's active duty.
And she transferred to active duty.
Yeah, but then she's they gave her the option to either extend 3 more years. But the issue is that her position is not 100% sure she's gonna stay here in Colorado.
Yeah.
Which the National Guard gives you that. So
Yep.
that's why that's our biggest option right now is the National Guard.
Yeah, you've done a lot, and we are very lucky to have you within this organization. We're really excited to see, what the next 3 years. If you're gonna top the first three, you have a lot of work to do. So, and you signed and originally, did you do a 6-year contract with us in the National Guard?
I did a 6x2.
So you're about halfway through your contract?
Yeah, about halfway through. And also touching on what we talked about earlier with extra duty, November of last year, I joined the Military Funeral Honors Program.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think the Funeral Honors Program is outstanding. It's a great job. I joined because they were running a training course on one of our weeks off from school, and used to be in the program.
Yep.
I knew a lot of people from my unit that were in the program, and they're like, yeah, like, we need people. Here's why you should join. And it was like, you get to honor people who came before you. And one of my favorite quotes from someone I heard at the beginning of my career is, thousands of people came before you and thousands of people are going to come after you. And your job is to be the best one of you. And being able to provide that service to families is a truly humbling and rewarding experience that you can't really feel anywhere else. And so when I joined, you can work as an MDay or as ADOS, so active duty operational support, full-time. We have about 10 full-time slots statewide. But as an MDay, you're almost like a contractor. Like, they'll just, they'll say, MDays, what's your availability this month, this week? You're like, hey, like, I have this Thursday, Friday off. Cool. Can you work a service? Like, absolutely. And so during the summer and the winter, I try to be on full-time staff. And so it's like, for college kids who are in the Guard, I think it is the greatest part-time job you can ever have. Because once you get that training course, you're certified. And you just keep your dress uniform up. You read the SOP every now and then. And then, whenever you're ready, you just show up and work a service and provide honors. And so this summer, I was on ADOS orders the entire time. And that was a really cool experience. I got to train a lot of new soldiers into the program. So I got to give back, and that is probably one of the areas where I've gotten the most learning experience towards being an NCO in the future, is being able to train soldiers as a junior enlisted and share your experience and give back to them was really cool.
Yep.
And in the winter, it's kind of the same story. And even if they don't have full-time orders available, like, you could work 30 days a month as an MDay. Yep. They have the funding for it, because it's a no-fail mission. Like, if there's a service, we gotta cover it, because they gave so much to us, and we got to give as much as we can back.
Yeah.
So that's the plan. Is, if you ever need a paycheck, let's go work funeral honors.
And that's just one opportunity.
Have such a small example.
I love that you mentioned it for those that are going to college and for those that are in right now. The program is always looking for motivated soldiers that want to give that extra mile and put themselves in a position to honor those that came before us. But whether it's funeral honors, counter drug, surf P operations, orders come up. Almost probably monthly within the state of Colorado, within multiple different units. So for those that would, are traditional National Guardsmen and don't work full-time for the National Guard, those opportunities to fill in gaps and hop on orders.
Even for deployments.
Yeah, for deployments.
Like you can, hey, I want to go deployed. I want to go with that unit. Raise my hand.
Yep.
Go with them.
Yeah, and I think one of the coolest things about being in college and being able to work, I don't work right now, a civilian job, but I did in high school. And, you get your drill schedule or you get orders, and you just give that to your employer or even your professors, and you can work with the Veteran Affairs Office at your university. And I wasn't expecting to be helped as much as I was. And, you know, I had professors moving my final dates for me so I could go to Mountain Warfare School or Winston P. Wilson. And they helped me at Mountain Warfare School for midterms. And in high school, when I was working a job my senior year, I just gave them my drill schedule, and they're like, sweet, like, thanks for what you do. And I was like, I just want to keep my job. And they're like, and they, you know, you can't be fired for being on orders, which is really cool. And so that's like, I think that speaks on one of the biggest opportunities is you can have a civilian life, a very active civilian life, and work part-time for the National Guard.
Yep. So what does the next remainder 3 years of your contract look like? What are some of the goals and aspirations that you have moving forward?
Yeah. My goals and aspirations right now are promotion-based and marksmanship team-based.
Okay.
I'm going for my double distinguished in rifle and pistol, Chiefs 50. That is, I think it's one of the greatest honors you can receive, and I think it shows people who are in the marksmanship community and outside of the marksmanship community that you dedicated your life to something, or a portion of your life to something that is extremely challenging. So I plan on, hopefully I can get my silver badges for excellence in competition this time next year. I picked up a lot of points this year.
Yep.
And I picked up a few points last year. But marksmanship is the passion.
Okay.
And one of the things I was worried about when I joined the marksmanship team is it is extra duty. It's an extracurricular. So is my unit going to support that? And 157th Infantry has supported me more than I could have ever even asked for. And, you know, they've let me split train to go shoot competitions, both civilian and military. And, you know, being able to have support from my unit is huge. And being in the Guard, or really any aspect of the military, really takes a village. And having the support of both people in the Army and people outside of the Army is phenomenal. And, you know, I have a lot of friends up at school. One of my really close friends, like, she knows all the competitions I go to, and, you know, I tell her about everything, and she's always so supportive. And I couldn't do any of this without the support of, you know, her, you, Sergeant First Class Sager, Sergeant First Class Grunther, just to name a few. And even as I'm getting closer to promoting, I'm kind of looking at units that can help me keep on shooting. And as I started to perform better, Max 7 Regional this year was a huge milestone. I got first overall novice, which was a huge milestone in my career. I got my first pistol EIC points. I was third overall at that match, which was outstanding. And, you know, coming back from all that and then doing the tag match, you know, at the tag match, people are like, are you promotable? And I'm like, absolutely I am. They're like, we want you to come work for us. And I think that's really cool. And the Colorado Guard will always give back to you whatever you give to them. And it's all about your level of participation, you know, especially with shooting. You know, if you want to be the best, you have to give everything you have. And like one of the 42 alphas I used to work with, like how you were talking about regulations with IG, and I just sit down and read them. And this dude was an absolute wizard with regulations and just knew him front and back. And I'm like, that's really cool. Like, you decided that you're going to be the best at your job, and you achieved that, and you're still going up. And I think that's really fantastic.
I have a couple of pictures. Yeah, they're not up yet for those watching
Almost
this.
up.
So if you're watching these, probably they're up.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, they haven't been up yet.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's my team on the far left. This year,
This 4, right?
Yeah, so this year my goal for the tag match, this is my first time as an open shooter because I was already a Governor's 20 recipient. So I was like, okay, I want to put together a team that can win.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd been talking to the scouts. Yeah, that's us with all of our plaques.
I love the plaques.
We got first place in every single event except for one.
I saw that.
You know what's funny that you mentioned, like,
Yeah.
when you go to these competitions, you're like, it's not about winning. Funny thing, when I met you, you remember how many, like, you went to the Wisdom P. Wilson was?
AFSAM. Armed Forces
AFSAM.
Skills at Arms.
You had, like, we could not fit all your awards, like yours, like the whole team,
Mm-hmm.
and Sergeant Sager's.
Oh, on the stairs?
No, we put them on the
Bunch of MRE boxes.
bunch of MRE boxes. Like, Elevated Duty Podcast was not even a podcast,
No.
and we did kind of like a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
super
that
cool.
video is on YouTube. So if you haven't seen that, go back, watch
Mhm.
that. And they won everything. So it's like, hey, it's not about winning, but if you win, try to win everything.
It's we talked about it before. You know, it's about the training and passing off the knowledge to the shooters to the right and left of you. But you know, I can hear it in your voice when you were talking about cleaning as a team every single individual match except for one.
Yeah.
A clean sweep is pretty nice. So
This is top
it's,
3, right?
it's not all about winning, but
Yeah, so far left, Second Lieutenant Gorman.
yeah, he was overall grand aggregate champion for the tag match this year.
One of the coolest experiences I had at the tag match this year was, if you go back to that last picture, so for Second Lieutenant Gorman and Specialist Osborne,
Mm-hmm.
they shot on the B team at Max 7 this year, and that was their first learning experience.
Wow.
And it was very cool to watch them struggle through the regional
Mm-hmm.
and then come to the tag match and clean up. And so, yeah, they beat me out. I'm very, very happy to be beaten by people who are better shooters.
Sure.
And it's very cool. Something Sergeant Sager says all the time is part of his passion for this sport is seeing the lights go off.
Yep.
And, like, seeing things click. And, like,
Look at that boy.
yeah.
Look at the tab.
Yeah, he did great at MAC too.
Mhm.
He was Second Lieutenant Gorman was our first overall night fighter. So
At Marksmanship Advisory Council Max 7.
yeah, I think he got first place in one of the night matches, and then like second or third in the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that was like our joke at the tag match. Like, we got the battalion night fighter with us.
That's great.
It was so cool, and one of the other cooler experiences I've had is my first year at the tag match. I got tabbed by Sergeant Sager,
Mm-hmm.
and that, like, probably to this day probably for the rest of my life will be one of the greatest experiences and memories I will ever have in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because one guy who was on our team, he came up to me and he was like, "Good job, man," and then he like tabbed me, and then the Sager comes up and he rips it off and like throws it away, and he's like, "No, this is my guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want him to have my tab,"
Mm-hmm.
and that was the most special experience I've ever had in the Army, like, if not my life. That was so special.
I'm excited for you to do it to the next one.
Yeah,
you know,
so
that's
where I was
that new
going.
individual.
I got to tab Specialist Borrego
Mm-hmm.
on my team, and he shot the tag match last year on a team separate than mine, and I think he was probably around middle of the pack last year, like 50 or 60.
Mm-hmm.
And this last year, he's on the right to the guy with the crutches. That was insane. Specialist Borrego. So we shot together. He's on the far right. So, like, that's speaking on his success at the tag match.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons he was able to succeed is because he trained outside of the Army. We went to the range a few times. We put together a group chat months before, went through the courses of fire. The scouts at AT, they they put 2,200 rounds of dry fire through the Mantis X system. Shout out Mantis.
That's great. Yep.
But yeah, they trained, and the reason we were able to succeed is because we trained. And
yep.
that's what I was saying earlier, is people never see what comes in between competitions.
Mm-hmm.
So like I told you how upset I was at Winston P. Wilson, just having that group really low, and I was like, this is never going to happen again. So then I got an invite to the Max 7 regional and that was in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I have so much more that I know I can be, or I know I have so much more to give. And so I went to the range probably 3 or 4 times a week in the few weeks leading up to it. And I shot 1,000 rounds for pistol EIC. And, you know, I shot a lot for rifle, and I worked on my positions. And then, you know, I showed up at Max 7, and I shot my match every single time. I think I was top 10 in every match and top 5 in a lot. I won a few matches. And I think that's personally one of the most rewarding things, is because no one's going to see your practice.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, you know how much you had to give to be in that position
mm-hmm.
to even do well.
Yep.
And then showing up and actually doing well is like, it was so rewarding.
Yeah,
and I called you from the hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I walked in after awards, and I was like, Sergeant Norcross, like, I did it. Like,
mm-hmm.
I did it. And, you know, you were so proud of me, and that meant a lot to me. And, like, I just remember hanging up the phone and just being like, yeah, like I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, being able to have that opportunity through the Colorado Guard, like, the feeling cannot be matched, in my opinion.
That's cool. That's cool seeing, you know, all your efforts paying off.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So, do you have anything else, Norcross?
No. Well, we're so excited to see the remainder of your first contract. We hope that you extend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stay in the Guard. We hope that you bring
Keep
more
shooting.
people.
Keep shooting. Yeah.
We always end the podcast, and you had a good quote earlier, but do you have another quote or a piece of advice that you've gotten from leadership or even on the civilian side that you'd like to pass off to
That's a good question.
the listeners? And then who would you like to challenge to come on the podcast within the National Guard, if you could give them a shout out?
That's a good question. I really challenging someone to come on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really thought about that. I think Specialist Peterson from 157th HHC.
Yeah.
Because we recently just pushed out a memo in our authorizing the wear of the sniper tab. And I think his career is very cool. He was in the Marines, and he was actually in the Marine band.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And then he comes over.
Yeah.
Comes over to the Colorado Guard, and he's like, I want to be a sniper.
He's everything.
Oh yeah.
He was recently on a sniper school, right?
We'll reach out to him.
Yeah, he went to sniper school. Hoping to see him compete in ISC sometime. We have a great reputation there.
Yep.
But I think he's very good at what he does, and he's a great dude.
Okay.
I would hope he comes on the podcast.
Yeah, he's everywhere. Like, I think I saw him. I don't remember if he ran when they did like a year and a half ago.
He does biathlon too.
Yeah, he does everything.
Yeah, he's
the marathon, endurance, biathlon.
Yeah, now he's G20 tabbed.
Yeah, we'll reach out to him.
He's just like Lindsay. He's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, what about a piece of advice? Quote.
That's tough.
Anything.
That's tough.
Something you'd like to pass off to the next new split trainer that might be coming into the Guard.
That's tough. I should have thought about this. You should have told me. I don't know. I'm trying to think about something from Lanny Basham potentially.
Okay.
But that's very, very shooting oriented. Honestly, for people who are trying to get into the Guard and people trying to split train, plans change. Plans will always change, and don't let anyone in your group or your community hold you back. There are very few people that I talk to from high school, and even from year to year in college, there are very few people that I keep in touch with.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the coolest things about going to basic training and AIT, it's a little pessimistic, but you find out really quick who's your tribe, and who's gonna stick it out with you. And having a career in the Army is a great way to find that.
Yep.
It's kind of a double-edged sword. You find the closest people in your life, but you're gonna lose a lot of the shallow people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for all the split trainers out there, plans will always change, and your priority number one. At the end of the day, you're going to bed at night, you have to sleep with yourself. If you're not giving yourself every opportunity to be the best version of you, what's really the point of doing it at all?
Love it.
That's great. So if you're, liking the content, like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell so whenever we upload any videos, you get notified. Probably by the time this podcast is out, tag match wrap up
Yes.
video is
Excited
up.
for that.
Yep.
You've done a lot of work for that one.
Pictures probably are up on the Flickr for the COARNG state page, and including the awards for the tag match. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, CO National Guard, CO National Guard. Again, 3 years and
keeps on going.
Look at that,
Keep on
1 hour and 20 minutes.
Love it.
And only 3 years, okay? So, if you want to do something else, change, and, have a venture, just come join the Colorado Army National Guard.
Reach out to a recruiter.
Awesome.
Great podcast.
Yep.
Thanks for having me on.